welcome to W&L Review. Today we are reviewing the movie Dear Evan Hansen. It is a 2021 movie. It's PG-13 and it was directed by Steven Chbosky. It stars Evan Platt, Colton Ryan, Caitlin Dever, Amy Adams, Danny Pino, and Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
And it is adapted from a play that was on Broadway.
Yeah.
And with that, I will let my daughter tell you about the movie.
So, we start off with our main character, Evan Hansen, played by Ben Platt. And he is trying to get ready for school and kind of get himself ready mentally because he has severe social anxiety. So he's like trying to talk himself through it, like today's going to be a great day, it's all going to be fine, nothing bad's going to happen. And he ends up going to school, and we meet his friend. Though his friend says, "I'm not your friend, I'm your family friend. There's a difference." And it's like, wow, okay. But as the day progresses, Evan ends up going to the library to write himself this letter because his psychiatrist has kind of given him this like homework that every day he writes himself a letter that's telling him today is going to be a good day, it's going to be a good week, and all this to try and help him with his self-esteem and having a more positive outlook on things. So he starts to write it, and he starts it with the starter, Dear Evan Hansen, and at the end signs it Sincerely Me. And so he ends up going and print it off, and he starts talking to this one boy, and his name is Connor Murphy, played by Colton Ryan. And Connor Murphy is definitely not a very popular kid either. In fact, he's kind of got a record with some of the kids in that they call him crazy, even though he's not. He made some mistakes when he was younger, he lashed out, but he wasn't crazy, and he's been kind of judged ever since. And Evan has a crush on Connor Murphy's sister, Zoe Murphy, played by Caitlin Dever. And Connor ends up citing Evan's cast that he has. And he says, we can both pretend like we have friends. And Connor ends up grabbing Evan's letter that he was writing, and he reads it. And he gets really angry because he realizes that his sister Zoe is mentioned. And he thinks that all Evan was doing was just talking to him, trying to be nice just so he could get close to his sister. So he gets mad, he shoves Evan and storms out, still with Evan's letter. And that night, Connor Murphy ended up taking his own life. And the next day, Evan doesn't know any of this yet. He is in his classes, and he gets called to the principal's office. And he's like, okay, don't know why, but I'll go. And in the principal's office, of course, there's the principal and Connor's parents. And they let Evan know what has happened. And they hand him this letter, and they say, Connor wanted us to give this to you. But it was Evan's letter he had wrote to himself. And since at the end it was written Sincerely Me, and it started with Dear Evan Hansen, they assumed that Connor wrote it. And they assumed that Connor and Evan were best friends. And Evan tries to say something like, no, like, it's all a mistake. But Connor's parents keep on mentioning things like how they wanted to know more about Connor because they didn't really know him that well because he was being distant. So Evan can't get up the courage to say something for fear of basically breaking their hearts. Telling them this is a misunderstanding, this is something I wrote to myself, it's not real, this isn't Connor. Basically saying that Connor didn't have any connections to anything, and they didn't have anything to go with after this whole thing went down. Evan couldn't say anything. He was too scared to hurt them more than they already were hurt by having their son do this and not having him here with them anymore. So the story goes on, and Evan is invited over to their house to give them more information about who Connor was. Because, like I said, he was very distant. He didn't talk to his family much, so they really didn't know much about him. So Evan decides, I'm going to try and comfort this family, and I'm going to kind of make up these stories that me and Connor were friends. And the story goes on, and they wanted more kind of concrete evidence that Evan and Connor were friends, because it's like, even though they didn't know their son very well, they at first were still a little skeptical that Connor would be best friends with this kid that they didn't know and that they didn't know that he had any friends. They were kind of like, this doesn't quite seem right. So Evan contacted his family friend, and they forged these emails between Evan and Connor, and to make it more believable. And the story goes on, and Evan and Zoe end up starting to date. And this Evan talks to this one fellow student, and they start this group to help others who have mental illness and need a place to vent, to be able to get out, to be able to get help. They start this group, and the group is called the Connor Project. And it all kind of started because at Connor's kind of memorial at the school, Evan spoke. And when he was speaking about Connor, even though he didn't really know him, he still spoke of him as if they were friends. And everyone was moved by his speech, and that's where this girl got the idea for the Connor Project, was because of what Evan had said. And it all continues, but once Evan and Zoe do start to date, Evan starts to drift away from the Connor Project. And the fellow student who helped start this starts to notice it. And she realized that something isn't quite right here. And it all ends up coming to a head, and inadvertently, Evan ends up telling the family that I didn't know him at all. And this was after he had really become almost a part of their family. Like, they were literally offering him money so that he could go to college, because they were a more wealthy family and he didn't have a whole lot of money. But it ended up all coming to a head, and Evan and Zoe broke up, and they never got back together, and Evan was somewhat kind of exiled from their family, from Connor's family. And the whole movie, I thought it was a great movie. Critics have said that it's a bad movie because of the subject matter, and the fact that they take it as Evan is taking advantage of this family, which he somewhat is, but he's also kind of trying to help-ish. I'm not saying I condone Evan's choices by any means, but I think it was a great movie. And the fact that this was adapted from the Broadway musical, the critics who are reviewing this movie say that they don't like it because of Evan's character and what he does, and that part of the subject matter, and how he's taking advantage of this grieving family. Yet, the Broadway musical had the exact same premise and everything, and the exact same music, because this movie is also in a musical form. It's all pretty much the same, minus maybe a few of the stars have changed. But it's all the same premise, and yet the actual Broadway musical, got raving reviews. Mm-hmm. So I'm honestly kind of confused on why the critics all of a sudden don't like it when it's the same thing. But I know I like it, and I think even though it's dark, it has a good message. But with that being said, I'll let my mom tell you her opinion.
Dear Evan Hansen is a good movie. I would say that if you have a teenager, especially one who's having a difficult time in their in with the social distancing crap and all that, or just having a difficult time being a teenager. This is probably a good movie for them to watch. You may, as a parent or grandparent or aunt, uncle, whatever, may want to watch this before them, because, you know, some kids, even though they may be older, they may not be able to handle the subject matter. It is a bit of a dark storyline, so it does deal with very dark subject matter, and I'm glad they did the movie and adapted it from the play. I think there needs to be more awareness to mental illness, and that way those who are hurting, those who are struggling, can get help. I wish that in a way that they would require this in like high school, like health class or something, as a video to watch. I mean, you can watch other things about stuff, but when you see things like this, it really, you know, makes things a little bit more understandable. Mental illness is not something to be ashamed of. And I will say that my dear boy had mental illness, and he's no longer with us. And I really think that this is a good movie. It is heavy and it's dark, so bring the tissues. But please, because it's dark and it's a little bit of a hard subject to deal with, don't discard this. Even if you don't want to watch it, if you know somebody who has a child or a family member, a loved one somewhere in their family that has mental illness, please, you know, forward this to them, because the only way for people to get help is that we start realizing that this is not it's not a bad word to have mental illness. I do like the way that they did this movie. I will say that, yeah, I did cry a lot. So, and that has a lot of folds in it. One, because my dear son had mental illness, and because I lost him. And so that has that. But I think that we need to get uncomfortable, because this isn't, fluff stuff. We need to know that there are people that are struggling and they need our help. Anyways, with all the cheers and all that being said, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of our subscribers. The ones who've been with us since the beginning, and the ones that just started to subscribe. Thank you. Thank you for supporting our channel and coming back each week and watching our videos. Thank you for Marion, also known as Life Unboxed, for being a Patreon subscriber. We thank you so very much. Thank you for Nate, also known as That Nate Guy on YouTube, for his support, and for both Marion and Nate for their friendship and support towards our channel. And if you like what we have to say, or even if you don't, if you didn't like this movie, and or you thought it was just complete garbage, you could put that in the comments. It's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. If you liked this movie, if you've seen it and you like it, or you liked it but it was brought back memories or made you sad, put that in the comments. Or if you knew somebody who had mental illness, who'd lost the battle, put their name in the comments. With that, guys, I'll say thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.